What really happens when you feed birds every day? On a quiet winter morning, before the house is fully awake, a small bird is already waiting outside the kitchen window. Maybe it is a bright red cardinal standing out against the gray branches. Maybe it is a chickadee, round and restless, tilting its head from a bare twig near the feeder. The porch light has not come on yet. The door has not opened. The feeder is still empty, but the bird is there. It has arrived before you have even thought about your morning routine, before the coffee, before the coat, before the scoop of seed. It is waiting in the cold, watching the place where food usually appears. To you, feeding birds may feel like one of the simplest acts of kindness in the world. You open the door, pour a little seed into the feeder, step back inside, and let the morning continue. It takes less than a minute. But for the bird outside, that tiny moment may be one of the most important signals of the day, because when you feed birds every day, something deeper begins to happen. They do not only eat, they learn, they remember, they adjust. Over time, your yard can become part of their survival map, part of their daily schedule, part of what they expect from the world. This does not mean feeding birds is wrong. In many cases, it can help them, especially when natural food is hard to find. But repeated kindness becomes more than a gesture. It becomes a pattern. And in the life of a wild bird, a reliable pattern can become a kind of trust. The first thing is the most obvious, but also the easiest to underestimate. You are changing their energy. Small birds live close to the edge. Their bodies are warm, fast, and fragile. They burn energy quickly just to stay alive. In winter, that challenge becomes sharper. A long, freezing night can take an enormous amount out of a bird no heavier than a few coins. While we sleep behind walls with blankets and heat, a chickadee may be tucked into a small shelter, feathers puffed out, conserving every bit of warmth it can. By morning, it needs fuel again, and it needs it soon. A few seeds may not look like much in your hand, but to a tiny bird in cold weather, they can be concentrated energy. They can help refill the tank after a difficult night. They can give a bird enough strength to keep moving, keep searching, keep surviving until sunset. Picture a chickadee landing on a feeder while snow clings to the branches around it. It does not relax the way we might imagine. It grabs a seed, looks left, looks right, and flies back to the cover of a bush. And when your feeder is filled every morning, that calculation changes. The bird does not need to search quite as far right away. It does not need to gamble as much energy on uncertain places. Your yard has become a known source of fuel, but food does not only change the body. Once a source of food becomes reliable, it begins to change the bird's map of the world. Birds are not wandering at random. Even when their movements look quick and scattered, many of them are following familiar routes. They know certain trees, fences, shrubs, and open patches of ground. They know where they can perch to watch. They know where they can vanish when a hawk passes overhead. The feeder is only the center. Around it, the whole yard takes on meaning. The branch above the feeder becomes a lookout post. The hedge nearby becomes an escape route. The fence becomes a waiting area. The window becomes the place where the large indoor creature appears. You may think a cardinal is only stopping by, but to that bird, your yard may be part of its winter territory. It may know exactly which branch to sit on while waiting. It may know where to fly if a cat enters the yard. It may know the quickest route from the feeder to dense shrubs. Watch long enough, and patterns appear. A chickadee may fly from the same bush to the feeder, then to the same tree, then back to cover. A sparrow may wait until another bird goes first, and once your yard becomes part of their map, something even more fascinating begins. Birds start learning your schedule. If you feed them at roughly the same time each day, they may begin to arrive before you do. They may notice the small signals that come before the food, the porch light, the sound of the door, the scrape of the seed container, your footsteps, even the coat you usually wear. They do not need to understand your name. They do not need to know what you are thinking. They only need to recognize a pattern. This is why some people notice birds waiting near the feeder before it is filled. It is why a bird might call from a nearby branch when the feeder is empty. It is why birds may check the yard again if you are late. It is why they may stay farther away when a stranger steps outside, but return more quickly when the familiar person appears. This does not make the bird tame. It does not mean it loves you in the human sense, but it does mean it is paying attention. It has survived by noticing details, and you have become one of those details. Birds also watch each other. A new bird does not always have to discover your feeder alone. It may first observe from a distance. It may notice that other birds are feeding calmly. It may see that they are not scattering in panic. It may wait, test the edge of the yard, move closer, and finally land. One bird eats and survives. Another sees it. A young bird follows an older bird. A migrating bird notices a small crowd gathered safely around a feeder. Morning after morning, nothing terrible happens. The place becomes familiar. The risk feels lower. At first, maybe only one bird came, then two, then five. Then, during the hardest part of winter, your yard seems to wake up with wings. This can be beautiful. A feeder can bring life close enough for you to notice it. It can turn a silent yard into a moving story. It can make you aware of creatures that were always nearby, but easy to overlook. Feeding birds every day is not automatically harmful. That is not the point. The point is that when a food source appears regularly, especially during difficult weather, some birds may begin to include it in their daily survival strategy. They may fly there first. They may wait. They may return again if the feeder is empty. They may spend energy checking a place that used to be dependable. On a mild spring day, this may not matter much. There are insects, seeds, buds, berries, and many other options. But in freezing weather, energy is precious. A small bird cannot afford to waste much of it. Imagine the same winter morning as before. The branch is still there. The feeder is still there. The bird arrives as usual. But this time there is no seed. To us, it may simply be a busy day, a forgotten chore, a weekend away. But to a bird that has built your feeder into its routine, the pattern has suddenly broken. This does not mean you should feel guilty for feeding birds. Most people begin because they love seeing life outside their window. They want to help. That impulse is good, but it helps to understand what consistency can create. Repetition builds expectation. Expectation shapes behavior. And behavior, for a wild bird, can affect survival. So if you feed birds every day during harsh weather, try to be steady. If you travel, ask someone to refill the feeder. If you need to stop, reduce the food gradually instead of cutting it off all at once. And even better, support natural food sources too. Native plants, seed-bearing flowers, berry bushes, trees, and messy corners where insects can live. And while you are watching the birds, another truth is unfolding at the same time. This may be one of the quietest surprises of feeding birds every day. We tend to imagine ourselves as the observers. We stand at the window with coffee in hand, studying the color of a cardinal, the quick movements of a chickadee, the boldness of a blue jay. They notice movement. They notice speed. They notice distance. They notice whether you walk straight toward them or move slowly past. They notice whether you wave your arms, slam the door, or stand still. They notice the difference between a familiar routine and an unpredictable stranger. Some bird species are famously good at recognizing individual humans, but even the small birds in an ordinary yard do not need to understand people the way people understand each other. They only need to sort us into categories: dangerous, unknown, familiar, less dangerous. In the world of a bird, trusting the wrong creature can be fatal. So when a bird stays on a branch a few seconds longer as you step outside, that is not nothing. When it returns to the feeder while you are still nearby, that is not nothing. It has made a calculation based on experience. This human moves slowly. This human brings food. This human has not chased me. Over time, the safe distance may shrink. A bird that once flew away the instant the door opened may now retreat only to the nearest bush. Another may wait on a branch while you refill the feeder. Again, this is not domestication. It is not ownership. It is a small adjustment in the bird's map of risk. But that adjustment brings another question. If birds become too comfortable around humans, are they losing some of their wildness? Birds have always adapted to changing environments. Human neighborhoods, gardens, parks, farms, and cities have altered the landscapes around them. Some birds survive by learning how to use these spaces. A feeder can help them through storms, cold snaps, and shortages. A safe yard with shrubs and clean water can be a real refuge. A bird that becomes too comfortable around people may come too close to houses, cars, windows, or pets. A bird that learns food is always near humans may become less cautious in the wrong place. Young birds may copy adults and learn that human spaces are feeding spaces, even when those spaces contain hidden dangers. A feeder placed too close to a window can increase the chance of collisions. A feeder placed where cats can hide can turn a helpful place into a trap. A dirty feeder can spread disease from bird to bird. Food that becomes wet and moldy can do more harm than good. That means keeping a respectful distance. It means not forcing closeness for the sake of a photo. It means placing feeders where birds have cover nearby, but not where predators can ambush them easily. It means keeping feeders clean. It means noticing when birds seem sick and being willing to pause feeding if disease spreads. Responsible feeding is not just about giving food. It is about giving food in a way that protects the lives drawn to it. And after all these changes, the energy, the map, the schedule, the reputation, the expectation, the watchfulness, and the risk, there is one final thing that is harder to name. The bird that returns each morning has chosen your yard, not in a sentimental way, not because it belongs to you, not because it has become tame. It could fly elsewhere. The cardinal could search another hedge. The chickadee could move deeper into the trees. The sparrow could follow a different flock. But this morning, it is here. It is here because over time, this place has become predictable. There was food here before. There was safety here before. Other birds fed here and survived. The human who appeared did not cause harm. The shrubs offered cover. The branch gave a clear view. The pattern held. In nature, trust is not always a feeling. Sometimes trust is simply repeated evidence. This place has worked before. This place may work again. That is why the empty feeder can feel so haunting. It is not just a piece of plastic or metal hanging from a hook. After enough mornings, it becomes part of a promise you may not have realized you were making. Not a promise that you own the birds, not a promise that they cannot live without you, but a promise that if you invite them into your routine matters. You may think you are feeding birds, but in a small way, you may also be teaching them to trust one corner of the human world. If you feed birds through harsh winter weather, keep the supply as steady as you reasonably can. If you are leaving town, ask a neighbor, friend, or family member to help. If you want to stop feeding after a long period, reduce the amount slowly so birds have time to shift their routes. Keep feeders clean. Remove old, wet, or moldy food. Wash feeders regularly, especially when many birds are gathering. A feeder that attracts life can also spread illness if it is neglected. Think carefully about placement. Avoid putting feeders too close to windows unless you have taken steps to reduce collisions. Keep them away from places where cats can hide and pounce. Give birds a nearby escape route, such as shrubs or branches. But keep the immediate area open enough for them to see danger coming. Plant native flowers that go to seed. Grow shrubs with berries. Leave some leaves under trees so insects can live there. Choose plants that feed caterpillars because many birds rely on insects when raising young. Let your yard become more than a feeding station. Let it become habitat. When you understand this, feeding birds becomes something richer than a hobby. It becomes a relationship with boundaries, a quiet exchange between your life and theirs. You give food, but you also give consistency. You offer a place, but you also accept responsibility. You watch them, but you also allow them to remain themselves. The next time you fill the feeder, pause for a moment before going back inside. Look at the branch where the cardinal waits. Look at the chickadee that darts in only after checking every direction. Look at the sparrow watching from the fence. deciding whether this place is safe enough. It may be returning because this place has become familiar, because your morning has become part of its morning, because in a world of cold, wind, hunger, predators, glass, cars, and sudden change, your yard has become one thing it can predict. You do not own that bird, you never did, but by showing up again and again, you have become a small part of its world. And for a wild creature, that is not small at all. To you, it may be only breakfast for the birds, but to the little life waiting outside your window, it may be a sign that, at least for today, the world is still holding together. So here is a question. Have you ever seen the same bird return to your yard day after day? Did it seem to wait for you? And have you ever stopped feeding for a while, only to notice that the birds still came back to check? Share your story in the comments, because sometimes the smallest moments outside our windows are the ones that stay with us the longest.